Chicago house. Chicago house refers to house music produced during the mid to late 1980s within Chicago. The term is generally used to refer to the first ever house music productions, which were by Chicago-based artists in the 1980s. History and origins. Disco edits. Following Chicago's disco demolition night in mid-Minus 1979, disco music's mainstream popularity fell into decline. In the early 1980s, fewer and fewer disco records were being released, but the genre remained popular in some Chicago nightclubs and on at least one radio station, WBMX-FM. In this era, Chicago radio jocks the Hot Mix 5 and club DJ Ron Hardy and Frankie Knuckles played various styles of dance music, including older disco records, newer Italo disco, electro, EBM tracks, b-boy hip-hop music by Man Parrish, Jellybean Benitez, Arthur Baker and John Roby, as well as electronic pop. Some of these DJ also made and played their own edits of their favorite songs on reel-to-reel tape, focusing on the portions of songs which worked well on the dance floor. Some even mixed in effects, drum machines, and other rhythmic electronic instrumentation in an effort to give songs more appeal. These edits and remixes were rarely released to the public, and even then were available only on privately pressed vinyl records or on mixtapes. European connection. The early house music sound was a dialogue between Hispanic and Black American post-disco and European post-punk electronic music. Precursors include electro songs Planet Rock, Let the Music Play, Italo disco e.g. Klein plus MBO on one hand, EBM Liaisons Dangereuses, Deutsche Amerikanische Freundschaft on acid house on another. Original productions. On the history, Farley Jackmaster Funk says Jess Saunders was first. He put out records before anyone conceived of doing it, got all the girls, and all the fame. Jess wanted to be the next Motown. Screamin' Rachel, co-founder of Trax Records, describes the music the following way: what Trax did was really a combination of punk and industrial with a really great forks for dance beat. Today they want to call it EDM, but Chicago house is the mother of them all. A lot of people don't want to recognize. I think people in the UK do, but others don't. In 1984, Saunders' label released, on 12-inch single, a song called On and On. Saunders composed the track with Vince Lawrence to replace a record that had been stolen from Saunders' collection, the On and On bootleg disco megamix by Match. That megamix, a pastiche of loops from several electronic disco records, particularly the bass line from Player One's Space Invaders 1979, had been Saunders' signature tune as a DJ. It was one that other DJ in the city did not play. Saunders and Lawrence added hypnotic lyrics and electronic instruments, utilizing a Roland TR-808 drum machine as electronic percussion, as well as a Korg Polyminus-61 synthesizer and a Roland TB-303 bass synthesizer. In a 2010 interview, Saunders claimed the song sought to capture the essence of the style of disco that other local DJ were playing at the time, a style he says was already known locally as house. Saunders' success with the relatively unpolished On and On inspired other Chicago DJ to try their hand at producing and releasing original songs in a similar style, using electronic instrumentation. Early such recordings included Jamie, Principles and Frankie Knuckles' Your Love 1986, and Chip E.S. Jack Trax Record 1985, featuring the songs It's House and Time to Jack, each of which used complex rhythms, simple bass line, sampling technology, and sparse vocals. These producers were aided in their efforts by the availability of affordable, mass-produced electronic music instruments, especially those from the Japanese Roland Corporation, including the TR-909, TR-808, and TR-707 drum machines, TR-727 Latin percussion machine. Although there are conflicting accounts of the term's etymology, by 1985 house music was synonymous with these homegrown dance music productions. Increasing popularity and divergent styles. As with other dance music, DJ and local club goers were the primary audience for this relatively non-commercial music, which was more conceptual and longer than the music usually played on commercial radio. Mainstream record stores often did not carry it, as the records were not available through the major record distributors. In Chicago, only record stores such as Imports, etc., State Street Records, J.R. Music Shop, and Gramophone Records were the primary suppliers of this music. Despite the music's limited commercial availability, house records sold in the tens of thousands, and the music was further popularized by a radio station, 102.7 WBMX FM, where program director Lee Michaels gave airtime to the station's resident DJ team, the Hot Mix 5 Ralph I. Rosario, Mickey Mix and Oliver. The Hot Mix 5 show started with the station's launch in 1981 and was widely listened to by DJ and dance music fans in Chicago, as well as visiting DJ and producers from Detroit. Many of the songs that defined the Chicago house music sound were released primarily on vinyl by the labels DJ International Records and Trax Records, both of which had distribution outside of Chicago, leading to house's popularity in other cities, including New York and London. Trends in house music soon became subgenres, such as the lush, slower tempo deep house, and the stark, especially hypnotic acid house. Deep house's origins can be traced to Chicago producer Mr. Fingers' jazzy, soulful recordings Mystery of Love 1985 and Can You Feel It 1986, which, according to author Richie Unterberger, moved house music away from its post-human tendencies back towards the lush, soulful sound of early disco music. Acid house arose from Chicago artists' experiments with the squelchy Roland T-Beaminus 303 bass synthesizer, and the style's earliest release on vinyl is generally cited as Future's Acid Trax 1987. Future, a group founded by Nathan DJ Pierre Jones, Earl Spanky Smith Jr., and Herbert Herb J. Jackson, is credited with having been the first to use the T-Beamin 303 in the house music context. The group's 12-minute Acid Trax was recorded to tape and was played by DJ Ron Hardy at the Music Box, where Hardy was resident DJ. Hardy once played it 4 times over the course of an evening until the crowd responded favorably. The track also utilized a Roland TR Menace 707 drum machine. Chicago house music was being licensed to UK labels by DJ International, Trax, KMS, and the Transmet record labels, and with that the music began to expand throughout Europe. Especially the Jack Trax compilations, starting in 1987, helped to make rare house records from the US available cheaply in Europe. Several house tracks became #1 hits on the UK singles chart, starting with Chicago musician Steve Silk Hurley's Jack Your Body 1987. The first house record considered to be a major hit overseas is Love Can't Turn Around by Farley Jackmaster Funk and Jess Saunders featuring Daryl Pandy, which peaked at #10 in the UK singles chart in 1986. Relationship to garage and techno. At the same time as house was becoming big in Chicago, other related genres were forming in other major U.S. cities. Simon Reynolds' A Tale of Three Cities, the first chapter of his book Generation Ecstasy, looked at the emergence of techno in Detroit, house in Chicago, and garage in New York City, and the reasons why the cultures took off like they did. Detroit was a unique urban area where industrial jobs had placed blacks and whites in the same economic situations, and this led to the Europhilia of these black youths and popularity of techno music. It was an attempt to distance themselves from the kids that were coming up in the projects in the ghetto. Reynolds, p. 5. Subculture. Chicago house aesthetic shared its look with other outsider hip-hop and punk subcultures. However, the indisputable sign of houseness came to be a Ralph Lauren preppy meets English country gentleman style, with cardigans, woolen jodhpurs, and riding boots. The club scene. When these house clubs and parties started to appeal to a wider audience, it was similar to the past disco culture in New York City. Both genres originated catering to very specific subcultures, and when the popularity grew, it changed the whole scene. The posting of no-jits signs was to make them feel unwanted, and that was when the scene started to self-destruct, however. Even though there are definitely parallels between house and disco clubs, this seemed more like a reversal of roles. The more elitist house listeners did not want to dilute their clubs and culture. Pages 230–248 of Brewster and Broughton's Last Night a DJ Saved My Life also looked at the rise of the house scene in Chicago. Through showing Frankie Knuckles' club, it gave a look at the club scene that was taking place and the energetic, sweaty, drug-fueled parties that house embodied. House was a feeling, a rebellious musical taste, a way of declaring yourself in the know. Broughton 242. Dance styles. At least three styles of dancing are associated with house music: jacking, footwork, and lofting. These styles include a variety of techniques and sub-styles, including skating, stomping, and shuffle steps. Also see Melbourne Shuffle. House music dancing styles can include movements from many other forms of dance, such as slam dancing, walking, voguing, African, Latin, Brazilian including capoeira, jazz dance, Lindy Hop. House dancing is concerned with the sensuality of the body and setting oneself free in ecstasy without the worry of outside barriers. One of the primary elements in house dancing is the jack or jacking, a style created in the early days of Chicago house that left its trace in numerous record titles such as Time to Jack by Chip E. from the Jack Tracks, EP 1985, Jack the House 1985 by Farley, Jack Master Funk 1985, or Jack Your Body by Steve Silk. It involves moving the torso forward and backward in a rippling motion matching to the beat of the music, as if a wave were passing through it. All footwork in house dancing is said to initiate from the way the jack moves, the center of gravity through space. Influence and diaspora. House, perhaps more than any other form of black music, has birthed many offshoots and spread its sound far and wide. The prevalence of four-on-the-floor beats in dance music is largely derived from house. It has influenced in some capacity garage house, jungle music, Eurodance, electropop, dubstep, and even certain elements of alternative rock and hip-hop. More direct offshoots of house, e.g. acid house, are also notable for their own offshoots that extend the Chicago variants family tree. House also partakes in aspects of the musical traditions of other sounds. Most notable is the influence it takes from disco genre. Progenitor Frankie Knuckles was himself a relocated New York disco DJ. In many senses, house was a low-budget recreation of disco, using synthesizers, sequencers, and samplers instead of orchestras and live performers. Disco also participated, to a less notable extent, in the sound system culture of typically Caribbean forms of dance music.